Take a look at this. These are the winners from the last 20 years of the Latvian Higher League. And now, let's remove the teams that no longer exist. Blimey. Why do so many of Latvia's best football clubs vanish into thin air? One year you're lifting a trophy, the next you're being liquidated and replaced by a club with the same kit and slightly different consonants. From match fixing to bankruptcy, unpaid wages to vanishing sponsors, Latvian football has quietly become a graveyard of champions. Let's rewind to 1992 for some context. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Latvian football had to start from scratch. The 1992 Virslīga featured a cocktail of rebranded Soviet teams, factory-backed sides, and hopeful amateurs with a pulse. The early challenges of the Latvian Higher League were myriad. Hyperinflation and economic turmoil in the 1990s meant clubs struggled to pay players and maintain facilities. Some clubs had dilapidated Soviet-era stadiums and very limited budgets for upkeep. It was common for teams to drop out or be replaced by new entities from one year to the next. The level of play suffered, as many top Latvian players went abroad or took on a second job making something called Rebranded. I wasn't too far off. Club ownership and funding shifted from Soviet state sponsorship to a Wild West-style scramble for private support. Many clubs attached themselves to whatever sponsors they could find, often newly privatized companies or local oligarchs. Skonto Riga emerged as the powerhouse of Latvian football. Their secret? A former KGB officer turned businessman owner who would later double as the president of the Latvian FA, Guntis Indriksons. Skonto promptly won the first title and then dominated Latvian football by winning 14 championships in a row. The 90s laid some shaky groundwork for the future of Latvian football, and by the start of the new millennia, the Latvian Higher League was barely recognisable from 1992. However, a handful of clubs would rise to prominence. Surely after a decade of turbulence and economic mismanagement, the big boys of Latvian football would get their suds together and learn from the mistakes of the past. Right? They would, right? Let's turn to Liepāja, a port city with proud footballing tradition. FK Liepāja Metallurgs, Jesus Christ, that's a hell of a name, had been one of the pillars of Latvian football since the 1990s. They broke Skonto's long title streak by winning the league in 2005 and won another championship in 2009, and regularly represented Latvia in European competitions. The club enjoyed relatively strong local support and was essentially the sporting wing of the city's huge steelworks, the Liepājas Metallurgs factory. I get it now. For years, this symbiosis of industry and sport worked well. The factory's profits helped fund the team, and the team's success boosted local pride. However, this model carried an obvious risk. If the factory sneezed, the club would catch a cold, or the flu, or TB or something. I don't know. Surprisingly, I'm not a doctor. In 2013, that's exactly what happened. The Metallurg Steel Company was hit hard by the aftershocks of the global recession and persistent financial troubles. The steel plant went bankrupt. With the primary sponsor gone, the football club was immediately on life support. Liepājas Metallurgs folded at the end of 2013. Financial woes weren't the only spectre haunting Latvian football. There was also the small matter of my favourite subject, match fixing. And no city has flirted with scandal quite like Daugavpils. Daugavpils? Daugavpils. I apologise to anyone Latvian watching this video. In 2009, a scandal hit the league when Dinaburg FC from Daugavpils was expelled from the Virslīga for match fixing. The club's player-manager Tamaz Persia and president Oleg Gavrilov were both banned from football. A top division club erased from the league table overnight, its remaining matches all forfeited 3-0. Which would have no doubt played havoc for all 7 players of the Latvian fantasy football game at the time. But here's where it gets messy. Earlier that same year, in 2009, Dinaburg had merged with another local club. When the scandal erupted, the merger was quietly unmerged, a bit like how I like to unmerge myself from the toilet from a morning fry-up. Just 3 years later, in 2012, FC Daugava Daugavpils completed one of the strangest glow-ups in European football. They won the Latvian Higher League. Imagine that. The city that lost its club down the match-fixing in 2009 was on top of the Latvian game by 2012. Daugava's title even earned them a spot in the UEFA Champions League qualifiers. Naturally, it didn't go well. In their tie against Sweden's Elfsborg, Daugava were leading 1-0 at half-time. Then they shipped 7 goals in the second half. 7. Betting watchdogs across Europe sat up like meerkats on Red Bull. Federbet, an organisation tracking match fixing, expressed grave concerns about the match. By late 2014, it emerged Oleg Gavrilov, the same Oleg Gavrilov who'd been banned for life in the Dinaburg case, was allegedly still involved at Daugava. Not exactly in the programme notes, but apparently still pulling the strings. He was arrested for money laundering and violating his football ban. Daugava lost their licence in 2015 and folded before the year was out. Skonto Riga were Latvian football's untouchable royalty, the capital's crown jewel. The club that won 15 Latvian league titles, including 14 in a row between 1991 and 2004. A record so dominant it made Bayern Munich look like Burnley. Hang on a minute. By the 2010s, the club was heavily reliant on long-time owner and Latvian FA president Guntis Indriksons, who, in a display of ethical gymnastics, managed to run both the league and its most powerful club at the same time. This cosy arrangement came to an end in 2012 when conflict of interest laws forced Indriksons to step away. Without its patron, Skonto's finances imploded. Sponsorship vanished, players stopped getting paid. By 2014, UEFA had banned them from European competition over unpaid debts. Not exactly a great look for your national flagship. Still, the Latvian league tried everything to keep them afloat. Granting last-minute licenses, overlooking debts, probably lighting candles in the church. But by 2015, even the federation had to admit the wheels had come off. Skonto finished second in the league, but it didn't matter. The following season, they were denied a top-flight licence, and a few months later, Skonto, once the face of Latvian football, declared bankruptcy and went into the bin. As Skonto were wheezing their way off life support, the rest of the league wasn't exactly thriving either. 2015 was the year the entire system took a swan dive off a cliff. The season was meant to feature 10 teams, but by the opening day, they were already down to 8. Daugava Daugavpils and FK Daugava Riga folded before a ball was kicked. FB Gulbin were binned 8 games into their debut season in the top flight for suspicious results and irregular betting patterns. By the end of 2015, Latvian football wasn't just creaking, it was practically held together with duct tape. In the space of 2 years, it had lost Liepājas Metalurgs, Daugava Daugavpils, FK Daugava Riga, Skonto FC, and now FB Gulbin, for being very naughty boys. The league had been gutted. It was less a competition and more a footballing survivor series. Latvian football had to reboot with fresh faces because the old guard were in the process of self-destructing. Speaking of which... For a few years after 2015, the Virslīga stabilised somewhat. New clubs like Riga FC and RFS injected fresh capital and started to dominate, while some survivors like FK Ventspils held the line for the old era. FK Ventspils in particular seemed like a rock. They had 6 league titles, most recently in 2014, and even made history in 2009 as the first Latvian club to reach the group stage of a UEFA competition. Through bankruptcy, scandal, and match-fixing everywhere else, Ventspils just kept on turning, looking, at least from the outside, like a functioning football team. But this is Latvia, and stability is just the calm before the scandal. By 2020, UEFA were poking hard around the club's European exploits, and in early 2021, the hammer came down hard. Ventspils were charged with fraud, bribery and match fixing, specifically for trying to bribe a referee in a European tie back in 2018. Their president was handed a lifetime ban, and UEFA banned the club from European football for 7 years. The fallout was quick. In July 2021, after 24 years in the top division, the club closed its doors, unable or unwilling to continue without its disgraced leadership and European prospects. Ventspils disappeared into Latvia's footballing black hole. Spartaks Jūrmala's story is a case of meteoric rise meets baffling fall. In 2016, this relatively young club from the seaside town of Jūrmala defied the odds to clinch its first ever Latvian championship, and then did it again in 2017, winning back-to-back Virslīga titles. And yet, for all that on-field success, the triumph felt oddly muted from the very start. Part of the reason was simple: hardly anyone was watching. Spartaks played their home matches at Jūrmala's modest Sloka Stadium. In their 2017 title-winning season, the club drew on average only 240 spectators per home game. It made for a bizarre spectacle, the best team in Latvia with an atmosphere as popping off as my grand's funeral. After those high points, Spartaks' form nosedived, and their finances weren't far behind. In 2022, they got slapped with a transfer ban, and in 2023 they withdrew from the top flight entirely after failing to meet the league's financial requirements. Today, they're not officially dead, but they're not exactly alive either. They exist in that strange footballing purgatory reserved for clubs that once held the trophy, but now can't scrape together the right paperwork to enter a five-a-side. So why do so many of Latvia's best clubs just keep on disappearing? Didn't you just watch the video? Oh, alright, I'll do it again. Financial mismanagement and over-ambition. Clubs spent beyond their means and racked up debts they couldn't pay. Some relied on single wealthy owners or companies, a fragile model that collapsed as soon as the benefactor pulled out. When even basic expenses can't be met, clubs have little other choice but to fold. Low attendance and limited revenue. Latvia's small population and competition from hockey and basketball for attention meant football clubs have a small amount of income from ticket sales or merchandise. A team like Spartaks having around 300 spectators is not an anomaly. Even Skonto in their latter days struggled to draw 4 digits. Without gate receipts or big sponsorships, clubs are exposed to any economic shock. It's hard to run a professional club when your home crowd could fit into a large spoons. Power, corruption, and lies. Oh, hang on a minute. No. Corruption, match fixing, and organised crime. When legitimate money runs out, the shady kind moves in. Dinaburg, FC Daugava Daugavpils, Ventspils. Match fixing became less of a scandal and more like a recurring subplot. Latvian clubs, cheap to run and relatively unregulated in the early 2000s, became an attractive vehicle for betting syndicates. These activities not only tarnished reputations, but often led to direct expulsion by the federation or bans by UEFA. Corruption also scared away genuine fans and sponsors, a vicious cycle. All these factors interconnect. A club with no fans and no money might turn to a dodgy match-fixing deal. A club owner involved in match fixing might get the team expelled. An expelled team leaves the league structure unstable, which hurts overall revenues and interest, and so on. Even now, the pattern continues. Valmiera FC, the 2022 Virslīga champions, finished 4th in 2024, but were denied a license to play in the top flight for the 2025 season due to unresolved financial issues. The club have managed to reduce its debt and was granted a license to play in the 3rd division of Latvia, but only time will tell whether they can climb their way back to the top flight or if they'll be joining the ever-growing number of clubs in Latvia's footballing cemetery. And it's not just the winners that keep getting sucked into this footballing black hole. We haven't even mentioned FK Daugava, generally having a financial FC Noah Jūrmala, legal battles with investors, SK Babite, match fixing, FC Jūrmala, long-term debts and unpaid wages, JFK Olymps, loss of government funding, FK Riga, bankrupt due to the credit crunch, and Venta Kuldiga, bankrupt from signing Arsenal legend Oleg Luzny. In the end, the story of Latvian club football isn't just about the teams that disappeared, it's about why they disappeared. A mix of economic bad luck, naive management, and outright naughtiness created a cycle where even the champions couldn't survive. In the Virslīga, staying alive is the toughest championship of all.